Go ahead and pray. Are we live? Okay. Lord, thank you that we can study the Word of God and learn the language in which you gave us 3/4 of the Bible. I pray that you would bless this class time, strengthen the students to help them to learn the language and be diligent in their effort for that and be able to use it to better understand your holy word. Bless every aspect of class, we pray. And we ask you to be glorified for Jesus' sake. Amen. All right, we had already had them write out Kothav. So let's see, how are your Kothavs? Are they okay?
Still in progress.
Still in progress? Okay.
I think they're perfect.
You think they're perfect? You think that the perfect is perfect? Okay, good. Well, why don't you read read what you... Oh, let me take a look. Let me see.
That's the one thing that I work so much on the vocabulary with pronunciation, but I have a hard time with the spelling.
Whoa. What order, is it going?
Third person, singular, and ending with first person plural. I guess I'm writing left to right, though.
Yeah, let me take a look. This. The she wrote. There, a lot of the forms are having difficulty figuring out what Kothavah is missing. I think. Oh, is that the Kothavna? I think you stuck a noon in there. Assuming that's she wrote.
Okay, here, let me label these.
Yeah. And it is good to do it like 3MS, 3FS, 2MS, 2FS, 1CS, 3CP, and like that.
What's the order you said you like it in?
The order that they're in on page 37, yeah, that's the way you want to do it, starting with the third person. Yeah. Because the third person is like the standard one. Like that way. Basically just like in the book. Kothav, Kothavah, Kothavta, Kothavti. I only wrote the first three. Kothav, Kothavah, Kothavta, Kothavti. I know there's a bit of a break, so hopefully you have to kind of get re-Hebrewified. Let me see what you've got over here. His name is Moses. Okay. Oh, this is, you need on Kothavu, that's a wow instead of the U vowel.
Oh, so the dot you're saying?
You need the dot. And in the Kothav 10, the noon should go down below the line. Kothav.
Okay.
And somehow a gimel found its way in there.
Mem, right?
Yes, that's a final name.
That's how you showed us how to write it?
Well, the final form, write the final form like, where's the pen? This is a normal name, like that. But final name is like that. Yeah. The revision, okay, let's see.
Is that understandable?
Now you can compare it with the book if you want. So, a few things that are a little bit different. All right, well, get that down perfectly as soon as possible. That's very important. And right now we're going to go to lesson 12. Unless you have any questions on homework from lessons 9 through 11. If you do, we'll be happy to answer them at this time. If you have noon, then we will go on. I have the safety monitor song in my head from Vacation Bible School. All right. Well, it's important to have that paradigm down perfectly as soon as possible because, again, all these other ones, we're learning all the variations of the perfect, how the perfect changes if there's a gut, or how the perfect changes if it's this, how the perfect changes if it's that. And so knowing the standard one, the standard one is more common than any of the variations. And two, you can kind of compare the standard with the variations. If you don't have the standard one down, the variations won't kind of make that much sense. So let's go ahead and see on lesson 9. We'll say it together, the perfect of Kathav. Yeah, on lesson 9. Page 37 there. Kathav, Kathava, Kathavta, Kathavt, Kathavti, Kathavu, Kathavtem, Kathavten, Kathavnu. Let's do it again. Kathav, Kathava, Kathavta, Kathaft, Kathavti, Kathavu, Kathavtem, Kathavten, Kathavnu. All right, let's do it one more time. Can't hurt. Kathav, Kathava, Kathavta, Kathaft, Kathavti, Kathavu, Kathavtem, Kathavten, Kathavnu. Good. And that's important to get that down. Yes?
Do we have to hold the mic anymore?
Well, the mic is, I don't know where the mic is. The mic is currently kaput. So you'll ask a question, I'll repeat it, and then that's how I have it recorded. I'm not sure.
Why is that a Kathav you're saying?
Kathav, the he wrote?
Kathav, yeah. Why? How do you get like a TH on it? Isn't it Kathav?
So the question is, why is it th instead of ta?
Because of the patha or the commas under it?
Is it because of the pathak underneath the tau? Or the commas underneath the kaf? What is the difference between this without a dagesh and with a dagesh? Is there a pronunciation difference between, yes, this is ta. Yes, this is the stop, and this is the spirit. So this is ta, and that's th. Yeah, so that's why it's Kathav versus Katav. It's a good question. Any other questions that you have at this time? Okay. Well, in lesson 12, we have verbs that are third hey, which means the third consonant is hey. So here we have bana is the paradigmatic one. And really you need to have, if you don't have Kathav down perfectly as soon as possible, it'll be very hard to go on. These other ones you want to get down too, and if you don't get it down, it's going to hurt you, but it won't hurt you like, it would be like getting a limb amputated versus getting run over by a Mack truck, I guess. So it's something that is not good, but you can kind of survive for a while. So, all right. So here we have bana. I'll read all the forms through, and then we'll read them together. I'll do it alone first. Bana, banatha, banitha, banith, banithi, banu, benithem, benithen, baninu. Okay, let's read it together. Yes, question.
So the third consonant is a hey?
That is a, well, he's going to mention, really, it's actually like a comet's hey vowel, but they're still called third hey. He says right beneath there that the hey is not a real root consonant, but a mater lectionis for the final vowel. But we still call them third heys. So if it was treated like more like a normal consonant, it would actually have the ma peak inside. But since it doesn't, it's actually a comet's hey, but they're still called third hey verbs.
But it only looks like the first two have a hey in it.
So he said only the first two have a hey. Yes, the hey does go away. Yeah. Well, that's just what they do. The hey goes away. Oh, remember, you're adding endings on the end. You can't. I guess you could stick the ending on after the hey, but that isn't what they do. So, really, you're sticking the endings on. What you're sticking the endings on is bon. So here is bon. And really, what you're doing is, the third person is like, imagine you're adding you're adding bon and then the next one, you're adding tha, and then you can imagine it kind of like that. This is the part that's the stable part, the bon, and the other stuff gets added on there, if that helps you. All right, well, let's say this together. Bana, banatha, banitha, banith, banithi, banu, benithem, benithen, baninu. I'll do it again. Bana, banatha, banitha, banith, banithi, banu, benithem, benithen, baninu. And it's actually, it's very warm for me, so I'm going to, let's see. I don't know what I can, what? Tie's going to be fine? Not going to scrape? Okay. So, all right. So, after all, Paul didn't wear a suit coat, so. Yeah, he had a robe. I'd rather have a suit coat than a robe myself, but. All right. So, do you have any, well, let me read what it says below there, and then we'll see if you have any questions. It says, note that the stem vowel in the first syllable behaves quite normally. When he says normally, he means like kothav. Okay? It's just, well, you're basically thinking about how these all are different from kothav. The stem itself is variable, so the bon is the stable part, but then he says you're adding the endings to those different forms there. And he says, again, the hey, really think of it like a comet's hey vowel. When the verb third hey is also first guttural, normal, you again, instead of benithem, benithen, the you second person plurals, instead you have a hatef pathak. So like Allah, to go up, you have alithem and alithen. You, plural, went up. Ye went up, masculine. Ye went up, feminine. Because you can't have the shawa underneath the guttural there. And haya, the verb to be, is of course a very common verb and a verb that you want to know well if you just think about how commonly you find that verb used. It's all so useful if you ever have to defend yourself and you're speaking in Hebrew, you can say haya. So that's also a good thing to know. But it's inflected regularly. But the second person plural has the slight peculiarity of hatef segol instead of hatef pathik. So, he ye them. And the rest of it is pretty normal. Okay, before we go any further, questions about this bana thing. Do you notice does anything stand out to you about it, or do you have anything you want to say about the bana? Notice that those, in the forms, you have the actual hey, bana, you have the actual hey and bana. And then you have the tau, bonatha. Notice in the second person and first person forms, you have this hirek yod in the middle. That's kind of distinctive thing about these third hay ones. So this bonitha, bonith, bonithi. So that's a notable feature. Besides that, you just kind of have to learn that that's what they do. Third hays. All right, we have the directive ah. So just like if your boss tells you what to do, you say ah. So it's the directive ah. So I saw this, yes. I was going to start talking about the next thing, but yeah, ask about banana.
So all these different forms, they're just off of basing what different words do. Like this is the word built.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what these forms, like this form and stuff pattern is only going to be seen in?
It'll be seen. No, this will be seen in. So the question was, what are these paradigms anyway? The kathav will be good for any verb, because remember, verbs are formed on these trilateral roots. So any verb that just has 3 normal consonants, kathav will be what we're going for here. Here, bana, this paradigm, the one that you have for bana, that's too big for the noon. Bana. This one will be good for anyone that has a third hay. So like to be, haya, will have the same pattern as bana. Or Allah, to go up, ascend, will have the same, because it's third hay, will have the same pattern as bana. Okay? So we're learning the different acceptance. Like lesson...
It's not like it's just for this word built.
No, it is not. The question is it just for the verb built? No, it's anyone that has a third hay. Okay. Yeah, otherwise, I mean, it would be worth learning haya on its own if it were distinct just because you find the verb to be so frequently, but this is a pattern that's good for all third hay. Like in the vocab for this lesson, there are 2 third hay verbs that he gives you. Asa, to do, make, act, and ra'ah, to see. So there you have 2 ones that are third hay right there. Karath, on page 53, is normal, to cut or to make a covenant. You cut a covenant in Hebrew. He says, karath barith, to make a treaty, to make a covenant is what it is, to cut a covenant. And then nasa is a third guttural. So nasa is like what you learned in lesson 10 for the third gutturals. Like the question is, why is it you cut a covenant? I think that there was often sacrifice, I think, with it. I don't want to end up saying something that's not true because I haven't thought about it for a while. But I think there is a reason why the covenant is cut. I don't know if it's necessarily them putting it in stone as much as maybe like some sort of like sacrificial thing. But it's not fresh enough that, I could be wrong. So we do, yeah. So today we cut deals. And so maybe, well, I don't know. I definitely wouldn't assume they're necessarily closely related there, that you cut deals and you cut a covenant. But in the King James, do you see that Abraham made a covenant with whatever, or God made a covenant? It's he cut a covenant. And covenant would definitely be better than treaty for bereath. So, and there's that camp here in, if you drive down the road, it's B'nai Bereath, the sons of the covenant. So it's a Jewish camp. So the B'nai Bereath. So, all right. So the directive hey, paragraph 58 there. That suffix ah indicates motion toward. So, and it can be on either a proper or a common noun. It says on top of 52, this ending is never stressed and may thus be distinguished from the feminine ending ah. So the ending will never have the stress on it. Because the directive ah cannot be added to all nouns, each form is best learned individually without lengthy analysis of the minor changes. Now, here he gives you a list, and you say, well, boy, you have to learn all these individually. You kind of do. Now, to kind of encourage you with that, though, when you're doing English to Hebrew, or excuse me, when you're translating Hebrew, it doesn't look that different. It looks pretty much like the form without the comment, without the directive hey, and so you can kind of recognize it. But then if you're doing the English to Hebrew, you might have to look back on this page and make sure you're not mixing a vowel up. So most of them, you kind of look relatively similar. So, like, give you a sense of what it means. Eretz is land or earth. So Eretzah would be to the earth, to the land. So here you direct somebody to the security training here. You know, somebody's doing a problem. You have to direct him to the ground. He's going Eretzah. You're putting him to the ground so he can be cuffed. Bayith is a house. And if you enter your house, or you're going to your house, you are going Beitha, to your house. So after this class, I think you have the verb yes. No, you have to do. Have you had to go? Ba? If you haven't had to go, you will soon. So you'll be able to say very soon, I go to my house. And that will be a nice thing to say. Then you have Har, mountain, and then Hara, mountain word. You're going to the mountain. Midbar, wilderness, Midbarah, to the wilderness. You kind of get the sense of it. You stick the directive hey on it, and you're going to that place. So, you have Negev. That's the southern part of Palestine. Can be used for south in general. Negba, you're going south. And then Sheol, the place of the dead, which was divided in two parts, the place of torment for the unsaved dead and blessedness for the saved dead. Sheolah, you're going to Sheol. You are going to the place of the dead. It's translated grave sometimes in the King James and hell sometimes, but even when it's grave, it's not just talking about the box you're in. It's like to the realm of the dead. And you can see that there's a distinction in the Old Testament itself, but it's not like an annihilationist word. Because, like, for example, David says, great is thy mercy towards me, to deliver my soul from the lowest, Sheol. So he's not saying, praise God, I'm not going into a deep grave, like I'm going to be buried in a shallow one. This is good. He's saying that he's not in the lowest hell, in the place of torment. God's delivered him from there, and he's going to be in paradise instead. So that's there in Sheol. Or verses like the wicked shall be not Psalm 9:17. How does that go? Yeah, the wicked shall be turned into hell. And it's not just saying they're going to go to the grave or something, because everybody goes to the grave. So the wicked are going to go to the grave, and so do the righteous. That's not what he's saying. He's actually going to be in hell, is what the point is there. So that's Sheol. And Christ went to the paradise section there for 3 days, and then he cleared it out when he rose from the dead. I don't actually prefer calling the whole place Abraham's bosom. I think that Lazarus was actually he was like with Abraham. They're like just next to him. I don't think the whole place was like this big bosom or whatever. I don't have a big problem with that if you call it that. I'm not going to go crazy, but I think it's better to call it paradise. And Abraham was just there, and he was there, next to him. But it's not a big deal. Okay, directional adverbs. You have ana, whither, to what place. And then you have shama, to that place. Sham, there, and shama, to that place. Hena, hither, to this place. Contrast po, which is here. So only the middle one, sham and shama, looks like a directional hey on it. The other ones are just words like po. You're like po and hena. Those are connected with a directional hey. They're not. It's two different words. But just the po is here, and hena is hither. That's the only reason he puts those three words there. Because aye and ana don't really look like they're related either. And you have the words for direction. Saphon, north, Kedem, east, Taman, south, Yam, sea or west. The word for sea and west are the same because the Mediterranean Sea, of course, was to your west if you were facing in the right direction in Israel. So seaward would be to go westward because there was a big sea over there. Any questions about that paragraph? it's that hard. Just you stick comma te on the end, and it's directional, basically. Yeah, stick. Boom. And this means you're going towards that place. And sometimes it changes the vowels in the word a little bit. This was the board that we had outside for our VBS class in the first 10. We sure did. We used this, we used visuals, we used all kinds of things. Yes? Yes. Bonatha. Bonatha, yeah. Oh, so the question is, you have a comma te. Yeah, you have comma te. Yeah. Comets. So the question is, how do we know that's not a directional hey on that form? Now, every time you have a comma te, it doesn't mean that it's always... Well, okay, if it's on a noun, you have a pretty good shot, unless this is just a word that happens to end in that. You have a pretty good shot this is a directional hey. But this is a verb form. So on a verb, you don't really have like a directional hey on a verb. This is something that you would add, like he mentions on the bottom 51, on proper nouns and common nouns. So you're not going to have a directional hey on another part of speech really, except the common or proper noun. So that's a good question. And that would be the answer. Any other questions? All right. Well, now we get something kind of interesting here. We're talking at the most frequent designations of God in the Old Testament are Elohim, God, and Yehovah, Jehovah. Now, he doesn't put the vowels in on Yehovah. If you actually have the tetragrammaton in the actual Hebrew text, and you can write the vowels in if you want to. Yehovah. This is what you actually see. So, this is a cholam. You know this is not a cholam wow like an O, it's just an O sound, but it's actually a consonantal wow because it has a vowel underneath it. If this was just a cholam wow, there wouldn't be another vowel. So this is just the cholam for the hey. So Yehovah is what you actually would see in the text. The question is, why does it get written there? That's just where it ends up getting written, because the hey gets written to the right, and it kind of like that's just how it gets written. Oh yeah, it's like the sheen scene. Yeah, when you have it just becomes one dot, and it's not that hard to identify when that happens. Okay, Elohim, he says on 52 there, is a plural word. I think there is actually, it wouldn't be the first thing I would go to prove Trinitarianism with an anti-Trinitarian, because he would have different objections. But I think that there is a Trinitarian implication in Elohim, especially since there are places where it takes a plural verb, like let us make man, something like that. And it can be used also for false gods, in the plural, and used of the true God as well. Now, once in a while, very rarely, you have a singular false god referred to as Elohim, but I think that's because the false gods were claiming like they're the true God type thing, so that's why you could have that situation. Yes? Yes. This is a cholam. Yeah, it is. I made it really far over. It's, yeah. Yeah, the cholam is just to the right of that consonant, right on the up. So you have Baith there. Yeah, it is. Now the question is, why is the cholam so far over? And The reason is because that's how I wrote it. So, all right. Now we have Yehovah, the name of God. He says for pious or superstitious reasons, Yehovah is read as Adonai, which is the plural of Adon, Lord. Adonai with the comets and the yod is restricted to, if I remember correctly, to God. And then you have some other things they do. We're going to talk about, he says that, well, I'll read what he says and then we'll talk about it a little bit. He says, just when this practice began, it's not certain, but it may predate the Christian era. It actually does seem to have indeed done that. The Masoretes indicated a substitution by applying the vowel points of Adonai slightly modified to Yod-He, Waw-He, hence Yehovah. The literal interpretation of this latter form as Yehovah, Jehovah, dates from modern times, he says. So, and then he said, we'll talk about what he says about Elohim there in a second. Then he says, those who wish to read Yod-He, Waw-He as Yahweh, the most likely original pronunciation, must remember to repoint the prepositions and so on. I think that the pronunciation Jehovah is actually correct for a number of reasons, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it right now, but I have the essay, which second semester on the vowel points, and I have a pretty big discussion of it there. Just a number of reasons for that. One, if you notice on Adonai, this isn't necessarily utterly conclusive, but usually, notice the Yod-He, Waw-He here doesn't actually have the Hatef Pathak like Adonai does. It just has the Shawah. So that would be at least unusual if they were just putting the vowels of Adonai underneath there, that it wasn't actually exactly the same. It's a little bit different. Another argument, which is I think quite strong, is all the names that have Jehovah compounds also all have Yehovah type situations, like Jehoshaphat is Yehoshaphat, Jehovah is judge, or all the other names that have the Jehovah forms. So if it really was Yahweh, instead of saying Jehoshaphat, Jehoiada, you'd really have to say it's Yahweh and Yahwehphat or whatever. And so you'd have to have a lot of changes here, which would seem unusual. And it's also on the names where they have the Jehovah forms on the back as well, where they have the... I have a whole... If you want to see more about this at this point, you can just read the essay. It's on the website. I think there's a number of good reasons to include the Jehovah's correct pronunciation. The Yahweh pronunciation, you actually don't have it anywhere in the actual Hebrew text. Yahweh, it's not there. You'd have to assume that the vowels were all corrupted or changed, and this alternative pronunciation... So the Hebrew text doesn't actually say Yahweh. It says Yehovah. Just read it for what it says. So, question? Yeah, the Hebrew text actually, if you just read what the Hebrew text says, it says Yehovah. Now, if you tell somebody you think Jehovah is the correct pronunciation, he'll probably fall on the ground and start flopping around, because obviously, no one believes that. But I think there's a really good case for it, and I think the case for Yahweh is weak. So, especially from a perspective that believes in the perfect preservation of Scripture. I think there is a basis for saying that sometimes so why does the King James has Jehovah there sometimes, like Isaiah 12:2, different other texts. But why does it have Lord in all caps most of the time? I think that there is a pretty good basis for saying that the Jews would frequently say Adonai instead of pronouncing the divine name. And that's what the Lord Jesus and the apostles did when they quoted the Old Testament as well. You can see where they're quoting like Romans 10:13, for example. And Joel 2:32 says, whosoever shall call the name of Jehovah shall be saved. Paul says the name of the Lord, Kurios. So, and there's actually some indications in the Hebrew text itself that Adonai was actually what they would do at times. So I think Jehovah is the correct pronunciation, but I think that they would often pronounce it as Adonai. So when you're reading the Hebrew Bible, if you want to say Yehovah, go for it. If you want to say Adonai, that's fine too. I wouldn't say Yahweh because I don't think it's correct. But if you want to do either of those, it's fine with me.
It's primarily Adonai.
Well, no, the Hebrew says this. The Hebrew says Yehovah. When you see, like in English, Lord in all caps, this is what the Hebrew is. But the word Adonai means Lord. Okay? So, and there is the actual word Adonai. When you see in the English, capital L, lowercase O-R-D is the title for God, this is the Hebrew Adonai, and this is the Hebrew Yehovah. But there is some reason to conclude that the Jews would, with some frequency, instead of pronouncing the Tetragrammaton, say Adonai. But the Hebrew text still says Yehovah. So if you want to follow the Jewish practice and say Adonai when you see this, that's fine. If you want to actually pronounce it and say Yehovah, that's fine as well. Usually when I'm reading the Bible in English, when I come to Lord in all caps in my mind, I say Jehovah when I'm reading this. Though if I'm going to read, if we're reading in church or whatever, it says Lord, so I'll read it as Lord.
If you're in front of a Jew, you want to say Adonai.
What did you say?
If you're reading in front of a Jew, you say Adonai.
Yeah, if I'm evangelizing a Jew, especially if he's a conservative Jew, I would probably refrain from pronouncing the Tetragrammaton just so I don't offend him. And I would just say Lord, so that he doesn't get offended for no reason. When you tell him Jesus is the Messiah, he'll get offended enough, so, yeah. He says there on the prepositions, before the prefixes, the initial aleph is lost in pronunciation. So, Be Elohim, Le Elohim, Ke Elohim. So you notice the Elohim loses the aleph, becomes quiescent, becomes silent. He says the initial aleph, you say, what aleph? I don't see an aleph in Yehovah. But Be'Hawa, in other words, if you're pronouncing it as Adonai, if you look at the transliteration, the aleph in Adonai becomes quiescent there. So it's Ba-Adonai, La-Adonai, Ka-Adonai. And the fact that there is a pathic underneath there actually gives some support for the statement that they would pronounce it as Adonai.
Do you know when in history Yahweh became in use?
Yeah, I think I talk about that in my essay as well. The question is, when did Yahweh kind of come in use? It's pretty modern, the pronunciation Yahweh, and really the proponents of that pronunciation who are honest will say it's speculative. They won't say we know for sure this is it. It seems very difficult for me to conclude that God would allow the pronunciation of his name to just disappear and vanish and allow the Bible to get corrupted by a wrong pronunciation and allow all the names of everybody to get changed, that all the Jehovah names, they all got changed too. It just seems like a very questionable thing to me. But it's a pretty modern pronunciation. They'll even say we aren't super sure about this pronunciation. So it seems to be a Samaritan pronunciation, actually. Some of the Samaritans used it. But the Samaritans were not really why are we following the Samaritans? So it was in some pagan papyri too. They found it. So that's good. I would say that Bible-believing Baptists who say Yahweh just have never thought about that. I mean, they haven't looked into it. They just saw it was in the book, and the book said this is it, so they just adopted it. They're not thinking, wow, I am rejecting what the Hebrew text says, and I am blue. They're not thinking that at all. They're just, the book said it, they haven't thought about it, so we'll say that. But I think Jehovah is the correct one, correct pronunciation. Yeah. What is it?
I said no Yahweh.
I wouldn't use Yahweh, no. I don't think it's correct. I think that Jehovah is the correct pronunciation. Now he says here, when the name Yehovah occurs in conjunction with Adonai, the former is read as Elohim and pointed as with the vowels of Elohim. This is to avoid the repetition of reading Adonai, Adonai. And actually, I think that is some evidence that they would actually pronounce the Tetragrammaton as Adonai, the fact that you do have that. So in the King James, that's why when the King James it says like Lord, God in all caps, whenever it's in all caps, it's Jehovah. So this is Adonai in Hebrew, and this is Yehovah. But if you were pronouncing both of these as Adonai, then you'd say Adonai, Adonai, which seems a little bit weird. So actually, this was pronounced as Elohim, and it actually has the vowels of Elohim. So that, I think, is evidence that they would actually use this substitution of Adonai. And that was actually, it's an appropriate thing. It's not wrong to do that. All right, we have the vocab here. Berith, the word covenant. Covenant's usually better than treaty. Chen is grace. Yeshua, salvation. Yeshua. Simcha, joy. That's what you have when you get your homework done. Asa, to do, Ra'ah, to see, Karath, we already been talking about Karath, Berith, cut a covenant. Nasa, set out travel journey. Some prepositions, im, ki, eth, or eighth. Notice that's both a direct object marker, and it can also mean with or together with. So the context would show you whether eth is just a marker of the direct object or whether it means with whoever, because the form is identical. And it gives you the idiom here, matzah chen be'enei, found grace in the eyes of. Like when the King James says that, he just says, like, matzah David chen be'enei hamelech. David found grace in the eyes of the king. And he translated as David found favor with the king, or the king became fond of David. Not very literal. I would probably write in the margin, David found grace in the eyes of the king. But this, instead of saying found favor and found grace in the eyes of, this whole thing became fond of whatever, is how he will put it in English and expect you to realize that what he really wants you to say is matzah chen be'enei. So like number 2 in A, the prophet grew fond of the boy. What you're supposed to do for Hebrew there is the boy found grace in the eyes of the prophet. Okay? So the boy found grace in the eyes of the prophet, and he says the prophet grew fond of the boy. So, not super literal. All right, we're going to take a break right now, and then we will continue here.
Says hi.
Amen. He says, bless the man whom the Lord will honor you.
No, I said my father-in-law says hi to you.
Oh, shalom. Say shalom to him.
Shalom.
Okay, right here, this handout that I gave you, I thought Lambden, we aren't getting into actual Hebrew like narrative translation for a while, but this I think will encourage. I mean, I'm giving this as a homework assignment, but it's as much to encourage you that you can actually start reading certain things in the Bible as it is. I tried to find sentences that had vocabulary that are in lessons 1 through 14. And I'd say I'm generally very close to overwhelmingly successful, but you might have to look up a word or two in those sentences, either in the back here or in your lexicon. But this was just to kind of encourage you, wow, I actually can read certain things in the Bible in Hebrew, basically. And so I think that'll be a blessing to you. Without knowing the imperfect, which you don't learn for a while yet, that's the other verb form, like long passages, you basically aren't going to be able to do them, which is why there aren't any here yet. So I had to, I was using my Bible software to try to find like verbs in the perfect with vocabulary words and trying to find passages that, these are portions of verses that you could read. So I thought that would be an encouragement for you. So homework assignment for today is to do those 3 extra translation sentences, and then for the next class, 15 to 17, you have those 3. And I'm going to try to get a few more until we get to the point where you actually are able to read actual passages. But I think you'll be happy. Wow, I can translate part of the Bible. Praise the Lord. So, all right, that's what this handout is. And I'm going to post it on the website, Lord willing, relatively soon, but I haven't done it yet because I want to actually try to see if I can get all of them up to the point where we're going to start translating Genesis 1, have like a few sentences that are kind of discussing vocab that we've got up to. In those actual Bible passages, if you see certain marks that look unfamiliar, they don't look like vowels, that look like just strange marks, they're probably the accents, because I just cut and paste the actual Hebrew in, and you don't need to know the accents yet. But they do, each word does have an accent. Except for one, the Amar in number 1. For some reason, when I cut and paste the Hebrew into my MS Word document, the accent becomes a weird, giant, funny-looking letter that's not in Hebrew. So I had to get rid of the accent for that word because I couldn't figure out how to get it in. But the rest of them, this is exactly what you would see in the Hebrew Bible. So, all right. All right, well, let's go to Lesson 13. Page 55.
I think I see a directive here.
You see directive hay? I think you very well might see there might be a directive hay in there. Yeah, it's very possible. All right, lesson 13, sentences with a nominal predicate. One of the simplest of all sentence types in Hebrew, here on page 55. Well, is that in which two nouns or noun phrases are juxtaposed to indicate a predication. Dawid melech tov. David, implied is, a good king. Melech tov. The demonstrative pronouns who and he. Remember, how does that go? The who is he and he is she?
And me is who?
Yeah. Me is who, and who is he, and he is she. Yeah. So who is he, and he is she, and their plurals are often used in sentences of this type. So Dawid, hu melech tov. David, he is a good king. Again, the verb is implied. Dawid melech tov hu. David, again, he is a good king. The probable for the exegetical value there is probably the inclusion of the demonstrative pronoun places somewhat of a greater emphasis on some of the elements. So that is the difference between just saying Dawid melech tov and Dawid hu melech tov. So question 2 probably answers the question, who is a good king? And the answer is Dawid hu melech tov. David, he is a good king. And the third question is, what is the statement 3 answers the question, what is David? And the answer is Dawid melech tov hu. David, he is a good king. And then the first one just is a statement, David is a good king. Dawid melech tov, without any sort of question in mind. So that's all he's saying there. You can have these implied verbs. Haya, to be. We have studied 4 types of nonverbal sentences so far. You can have an adjective in the predicate. Tov ha'ish, that is, good is the man. The man is good. You can have an adverbial predicate. Ha'ish babayeth, the man is in the house. Yesh ish, there is a man. And a nominal predicate. Dawid melech tov, David is a good king. He says none of these has any specific tense value. So in other words, the verb you supply, if the context would support it to be was or will be in a whole big narrative, you might supply that. Without a context, using the present tense is probably what you want to do. All of these sentences can be converted into verbal sentences by using haya, to be, which in the perfect has the normal tense values of that form. So he was, she was, I were, I was, I were, maybe not that, we were, whatever. So instead of just saying ha'ish tov or tov ha'ish, you could say rather haya ha'ish tov. The man was good. Haya was, ha'ish, the man, tov, good. You can say, instead of just saying ha'ish babayeth, the man is in the house, you can say haya ha'ish babayeth, the man was in the house. Instead of saying yesh ish, there is a man, you can say haya, well, there's a silver there. Haya kesef, there was silver, but then we had to pay our taxes. You can say David was a good king. Dawid haya, he was melech tov, a good king. To negate the sentence, to say he was not a good king, there was no silver, the man was not good, you negate it with lo, no. So yesh is replaced by, so that's how you negate that, and then you want to be aware of that. If you didn't learn lo yet, that would be a vocab word for sure, to know how to negate sentences. Note that yesh is replaced by haya in 3, so yesh ish became haya kesef. And that a negative existential sentence like ein kesef, there is no silver, becomes lo haya kesef, there was no silver. You follow that? Questions about that at this point?
I'm just thinking ahead of when we're going to be doing exercises with this. How will we know there is no silver? It would be translated from English into our Hebrew. We would write lo, haya, or ein.
The question is, if there's basically, how do you do to write ein or lo, haya, stuff like that? Well, ein and yesh would be there is, there are. Lo, haya would be there was no. So that's one easy way to tell. You will get to a point where there could be sentences where there's more than one correct way to translate the English into the Hebrew. And then if you use either one, you're fine. Though when you check it in the answer key, you should probably change it to whatever the answer key says just to be conformed to the answer key. But there could be more than one correct way sometimes. But yesh and ein are there is no, there are no, versus there haya. Remember, perfect tense is usually past, so he was, she was, and so on. Good question. I'm not sure what the word question is in Hebrew. I should find that out, so then I can say tov and question. So, all right. Sentences of the type Haya David Lamelech Tov. David was to a good king. The preposition lamed, adding the lamed in there, the 2-4, adds a kind of becoming nuance. So Haya David Lamelech Tov is David was becoming a good king. It's kind of the idea. David was to a good king, like he was becoming a good king. And he says that's sentence of type 2. Note the following use of lamed. Hayatha Sarah la Avraham la Isha. That is, Sarah was to Abraham to wife. That's how you say Sarah became Abraham's wife. Sarah was to Abraham to wife. And you can see that the King James, because it's literal, sometimes you notice it says like, he took her to wife, something like that. It's because it's this. It's la isha, to wife. To lamed plus that. So it's kind of nice. Most people, like if you're a modernist who reads a non-literal Bible translation, if you read the Bible at all, then you are more likely to not. Like some of these things, like we have an advantage a little bit, because since we're used to reading a literal English Bible, like it was good in the eyes of, it is not like this weird, like, whoa, where did that come from? Well, if you're reading the Living Bible, it's like, totally foreign or whatever. Or she took her to wife. We actually can, we're somewhat familiar with that phraseology because it's in the King James. So that's kind of nice. Now, of course, in English to Hebrew, he's not going to say that. He's going to say some Sarah became Abraham's wife and expect you to write Sarah was to Abraham to wife. So, but you're getting ready for when you go to a mission field and you have to translate somebody else's thing or whatever. Or you understand what that person has to do when he's trying to think how to transfer your English into vernacular. That would be an interesting job. Challenging. All right. If we replace lamed with kaf, the idea is that of acting in the place or capacity of, and not actually being. So, haya ha'ish lane'er ka'av. The man was to the youth ka'av, as a father. So the man was to the youth as a father. So he wasn't actually his father, but he acted like a father. He was acting in the capacity of a father. That's the idea there. And you can if you translate it literally, you kind of get the idea of what it is. He was to the youth as a father. That would show you what he's talking about. Haya plus lamed, as the past tense of yesh lamed, may be used to translate possession. Hayatzon la Avraham. There were cattle to Abraham. And the idea there is possession. Abraham possessed cattle. There were cattle to Abraham. Sentences of the participial predicate as ha'ish kothev, the man is writing, are seldom converted with haya, and you'll understand why later when we get into the syntax of Hebrew narrative. Most of this whole big paragraph with haya, if you translate it literally, you can kind of get the sense of what he's saying it ends up meaning. So I don't think it's that bad. You just can see Hayatzon la Avraham is he possessed sheep. There were sheep to Abraham, or cattle. Noun plurals, feminine nouns with those endings, eth, ath, oth, ith, oth, uth, have much variety in the plural. So instead of giving you just a paradigm, he says the plural of feminine nouns with those sorts of endings, you just have to learn the plural form. So that's just how it is, and so that's what you have to do. So, for example, bath, daughter, it becomes banoth. Eighth time becomes itim, deleth, door, delethoth, and so on. So some of those plurals are just relatively irregular. Yeah. They have plural endings. I mean, you see this verb, you see an oath or an em on it, you're like, okay, this looks like a noun. It looks like the plural of something. What is this a plural of? And hopefully you can figure it out. Okay, sin, chatoth, that's an important word, plural. Notice if the plural is irregular, he'll tell you in the vocabulary, and then it would be a good idea to just make that part of memorizing that vocab if he puts a plural in. If he doesn't, then it's just irregular and you can figure it out without spending the time to actually make it an extra thing to memorize. It would be nice if there was, a way you could learn a language without memorizing lots of stuff, but there isn't, so unless you can just use Google Translator for everything. But that doesn't work out that well. Chalom, dream. So we don't want you to be doing that during class. Bath is a daughter, because of course daughters like to be clean. So bath. Ema, fear, terror, or dread. That's what the kid feels when he's done something wrong and mom is coming home. Ema. Okay. Shifcha is a maidservant or a female slave. Ama is another word. So those are kind of synonyms, ama and shifcha, for maidservants or female slaves. And you have some verbs, haya, chata, chalam, and lakat. What does the verb chalam look like that's in the same vocabulary list here? Or the consonantal root. It makes it easier for you to learn another word here. If you learn the verb, what is it?
Halom.
Yeah, chalom, the word for dream, and the verb to dream, of course, you can see the connection. So that's nice. And actually like with the verb to sin as well. Chata, to sin, and chatath, the noun for sin, are again quite similar. So that's good. All right. Any questions on lesson 13? Yes.
For some of the plurals, there's an eem on the end,
Yes.
but he doesn't show that down on the bottom of 56, like the I am. They're all like with a T ending.
So he says some of the ones here have an eem ending, but none of them are at the bottom of 56. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. When he says the feminine nouns ending in those endings, the eth, ath, and all those are the singulars end in those. So like bath is like that second one at the bottom of 56, ath. Eighth for time is like the first one. And so the singulars that end in eth, ath, and all that stuff have this somewhat irregular plurals. So, and those are all feminine. So even like time, the word time is actually feminine, even though it has the plural in eem. Itim.
So if you just know the singular, you'll know that has to be a plural. Because there's not like there's not necessarily like set endings for the plural.
So the question about the endings for the plural. No, the normal endings for the plural we learned back, before. Oath is normally the feminine, eem is normally the masculine. But there are certain occasions where they flip around. But in the vocabulary list, if you had, you'd be able to find out that itim is actually a feminine word just from the singular. Well, the singular would tell you. But yeah, so the normal plural, feminine plural is oath, and the normal masculine is eem. But sometimes it's a little bit different. We have lots of exceptions in English too. Any other questions about lesson 13? That was a good point. I don't think I brought out at the bottom of 56, so those were all the singular endings. But that's important to be aware of. Okay, well, let's start the last lesson for today. Yeah, we still have some good time there. Lesson 14. The perspective of kam and ba. Of course, they were a pastoral society, so you expect with all the sheep that ba would be a common verb. But anyway, so the two verbs kam, he arose, and ba, he came. It has nothing to do with sheep. Okay, represent a new type of root not mentioned previously. Essentially biconsonantal. So notice that normally, like kathav, the large majority of verbs are all triconsonantal, 3 consonants. Okay? First, second, third. Here, in the perfect at least, we have ones that are essentially 2 consonants. Okay? That's what's new here. Now he says they are sometimes associated with nouns exhibiting a second form of the same root with a wow or a yod in the middle. So these roots are classified as second wow or second yod in traditional grammar. So if you were to look up ba in the lexicon in Brown Driver Briggs, it would actually be underneath this. Beith, wow, aleph. So at this point, the fact that there's second wow or second yod doesn't make any difference, but it will eventually make a difference. So I would recommend that really you just think of this, like he says there, think of these, the standard vocabulary forms as this, and then for to come, or to arise rather, think of arise as kof, wow, kof, wow, mame, instead of just kof, mame. And just basically the wow kind of vanishes and makes no difference. I mean, as of lesson 14, if there never was a wow there, it wouldn't make any difference at all. But in the lexicon, this is where they're going to be under. And later, eventually, you'll see why really that's more what they are. But at this point, it doesn't make any difference. So he will put them in his vocabulary as just ba, like this, and calm. But I would recommend, if you want to memorize it that way, fine, it's great. But I would recommend it's probably better to just think of them as what they actually are, because that's where you're going to find it in the lexicon, and eventually it does make a difference. So okay. The distinction, he says, between roots second wow and second yod will only become clear later. At the present, it doesn't make any difference. And so here's another paradigm to learn. This is for second wow or second yod verbs. And so here we have kam, kama, kamta, kamt, kamti, kamu, kamtem, kamtem, kamnu. Let's actually read that together. I'm going to read it not as fast as that. Okay. So read a little slower. Kam, kama, kamta, kamt, kamti, kamu, kamtem, kamten, kamnu. Let's do it again. Kam, kama, kamta, kamt, kamti, kamu, kamtem, kamten, kamnu. One more time. Kam, kama, kamta, kamt, kamti, kamu, kamtem, kamten, kamnu. All right, very good. Tov ma'od. I would like you to look at Kathav in lesson 9 and tell me just if you see anything kind of similar or different about any of the forms here that maybe might... Basically, I'm trying to see if there's anything that can help you make it a little easier to learn it. But obviously a letter is missing. But are there anything in the vowel patterns that are similar that kind of make them look alike here?
It seems like if you look at Katav in those paradigms, if you take out that first letter with the kamets, the kam, most of these words pretty much match up if you take off the kaf and the kamets.
Good. He said that if you take off the first consonant of kathav and you just look at the vowel pattern for the rest of it, for a lot of the forms it's essentially the same or just actually entirely identical, and that is correct. And that, I think, will save you time. That is this. Which ones are... Okay, so look at that and drop that first letter. If you, instead of just having kathav, like kathav, kathavah, kathavta, which ones, if you just dropped that, are the vowels identical?
The only one that's essentially different is third person.
Good. He says apart from the third person, it's the same. Yeah. So kathavta, drop the kaf, and you have tavta. And here with kam, you have kamta. Kathav, you have kathaft. Here you have camped. Kathav, you had tavti. Here you have camti. Then on the plural side, the you plurals and the we plural, kathavtem, that would just be tavtem. Here you have camtem. Tavten, camten, kathavnu, tavnu, camnu. So yes, so the second person and first person ones are identical in those forms to kathav. And the only ones where it's different are the third person. So that will save you. And really on the third person ones, it's like you take the first consonant, the ka in kathav, and it's almost like you just drop the middle and have the end part. Or I don't know. Maybe that'll help you. But there's a lot of similarities. So if you remember that these second vowel ones in the second and first persons are identical to kathav, you've just gotten the vast majority of your forms taken care of here. So then he says beneath there, note the stem. Any other comments you want to make about those forms? All right. Note that the stem vowel is short in all persons other than the third. In other words, stem vowel, just what we point out, that it's kamta with a pathak instead of kamta with the comets. He says the length of the stem vowel is almost completely dependent on whether the stem syllable is open or closed. Okay, well, that makes sense. So here, in comma, notice... What are the two syllables in she arose?
Ka and ma.
Good. Ka and ma. And so the first syllable is open, ka, and so it has a long vowel. In thou arose, or thou arosest, I guess, the second masculine singular is the first... What's the first syllable? Cam is the first syllable. Kof, pathak, mame, with a silent schwa. So there, closed syllables, you have the short vowel. Open syllable, long vowel, except for com. But that's generally how it works here. Then he says, unlike verbs previously learned, the accent remains on the stem in the forms of the third feminine singular and the third common plural. So, in the third feminine singular, kathava, the accent is on the ultima. It's not kathava, but it's kathava. But here, it's she arose, it's kama, not kama. And then in the plural, it's kathavu, with the accent on the ultima. Here it's kamu, not kamu. So that last sentence, that's all he's saying, that the accent doesn't drop back. It stays on that syllable. That doesn't make tons and tons of difference. Makes it a little, well, you'll see it can influence certain things, but it's worth being aware of. It's worth mentioning it. Any questions on that? Okay, on page 60, ba has aleph as the final root consonant, and so we find the same kind of deviations as with matzah. So with matzah, let's read matzah again. That's lesson 10, I think. No, it's lesson 11. Let's read kathav once in lesson 9, and then matzah in lesson 11. And that will hopefully, you will be able to find what the difference is. So let's go ahead and read the paradigm of kathav again on page 37. Here we go. Kathav, kathava, kathavta. Are you with me? I don't hear too much here. Okay, let's just start again. Kathav, kathava, kathavta, kathaft, kathavti, kathavu, kathavtem, kathavten, kathavnu. Let's do it one more time. Kathav, kathava, kathavta, kathaft, kathavti, kathavu, kathavtem, kathavten, kathavnu. Now let's go to matzah on page 47, if you can find that page. Matzah, matzah, matzatha, matzath, matzathi, matzau, matzathem, matzathen, matzanu. One more time. Matzah, matzah, matzatha, matzath, matzathi, matzau, matzathen, matzathen, matzanu. All right, good. What is the big difference there when you have a third aleph? Think about the difference in the third aleph, and then go ahead and compare on page 59 and 60 the kam forms and the ba forms, and tell me what sort of distinctively third aleph is going on. Okay, he says no dagesh in what? In the endings? Okay, yeah, good. No dagesh in the endings. And like in batha, bath, bathi. That's true. Why is there no dagesh in ba, ba'a, batha, bath, and also in matzah, matzah, or matzah, matzah, matzatha, matzath, matzathi? Why is there no dagesh? Where did it go? Why isn't it found? I'm not found. Now I am found. What is it?
It's an open syllable.
Okay. That aleph in matzah, is it a pronounced aleph or a quiescent aleph, a silent aleph? The transliteration tells you. Yeah, look at the transliteration. It's in the brackets, silent. So basically, you have this open syllable, like in the you plural, you found, masculine singular, matzatha. So it's ma syllable, sa syllable, and tha. So there's a vowel right before the ending, and so therefore you have a dagesh lane instead of a dagesh. Or, excuse me, no dagesh instead of a dagesh lane, because it's preceded by a vowel. Good. So that's one difference. You have this lack of dagesh. Any other difference? You notice any vowel differences? Any vowel differences between the third, like between kathav and matzah, or between kam and ba? So between the second wow non-third aleph and the second wow third aleph, or between the normal triconsonantal form kathav and the third aleph matzah. Yes. Okay, so you want to get us going? We're going in? Okay. So yeah, that'll be good. So have a good time with that. All right. So tell me what differences do you see here between the kam and the ba and the kathav and the matzah in terms of the vowels? You'll notice it in the second and first persons with the second root consonant, like kathavta versus matsatha, kathaft versus matsath, kathavti versus matsathi, or with the kam and the ba, kamta versus batha, kamt versus bath, kamti versus bathi. Oh yeah, tons of similarities. What is different? Basically, apart from what we're pointing out here, there aren't any differences. You said accent?
On the masatha, there's a little accent over the vowel.
Let's see. Matsatha does have the accent there, but I think kathav does too. Matsatha. No, that accent is the same. Oh no, except for, the feminine. That's good. Kathavta doesn't have the accent. Matsatha does. That's actually one I didn't catch there. But it looks like that's a difference, yeah. There's something I think is more obvious than that. A difference. What's the vowel in kathav underneath the second root consonant? Pathak?
Yeah, pate.
Pate is like something you eat. Pate de foie gras. You might not like that, though. Good. Pathak versus comets. So the triconsonantal has the pathak, which it's lengthened to comets. So the quiescent aleph, the aleph getting quiescent, results in the vowel getting lengthened. Okay? And so that is kind of the big difference, which is associated with the dagesh disappearing too. So that quiescent aleph makes you have the vowel before they get lengthened. And so, because it's like a closed open syllable thing. And so as a result, you have the same thing with kam and ba. So in the second and the first persons in kam and ba, what do you notice that's different about the vowels underneath? Here we only have two root consonants essentially. Underneath the first root consonant, what's different? Good. The pathak becomes a comet instead. Because again, for the same reason, the quiescent aleph, you now have an open syllable, it has the longer vowel. So instead of kamta, it's batha. Instead of kamt, it's bath. Kamti, bathi. And if you just remember the aleph does that, you could still memorize the paradigm, but that's the difference. Can you see that, Philip? See the difference there? Page 59 and 60. The kam on bottom of 59, all the forms of there. The third person ones, you don't have this. But the second and first person ones, and then compare that to ba on the top of 60.
So the aleph makes the pathak come out.
The fact that the aleph goes silent makes it so now the pathak changes the comets because now it's that's why. The pathak going silent makes it the pathak go to comets.
Kind of like when you're doing a definitive article.
Definite article?
It kind of makes it comets when you have an aleph.
If that helps you remember it, great. I don't know if they're related like things why they do it, but if that helps you memorize it, that's fine. That it's like the article. But
is that general with English?
I think it's more like here the aleph becomes quiescent, and so with the aleph quiescentifying, it's like if that aleph was just some root consonant, it's an actual consonant. Like in kamta, you have a closed syllable. Kamta, kamt, kamti. The first syllable is closed. Here on ba, because the aleph is quiescent, you essentially have an open syllable. So that open syllable gets the longer vowel. The closed syllable gets the short vowel according to the rule. So that's really the reason for it. Are you following anything, Philip?
Kind of.
Kind of. So,
I'm not for sure why it's getting it why it's different, other than it's just different words.
it's different because I think that it's different. It's a little bit of a hole, I think, maybe in the first part. Because in the first part we talked about open and closed syllables, and I don't remember what page that's on.
So we're looking at 59 and 60 there.
Yes.
The differences between those two?
Yes, we are. And if you, I don't know. It's in the front part, in that part where he hadn't introduced the letters yet. He talks about open and closed syllables, and how open syllables you have the longer vowel and they have the short vowel in the closed syllables.
Okay.
But I don't remember where it is. But it's there somewhere. And in there he says what we're talking about now. I can try to find it.
Open and closed?
Yeah, no, I found where he talks about them a little bit, but I didn't see where he talks about how that changes the vowels, but it does. I don't know. I'll try to find it. Let's say the forms of ba together on the top of 60. All right. Ba, ba-a, ba-tha, bath, bathi, ba-u, ba-them, ba-then, ba-nu. One more time. Ba, ba-a, ba-tha, bath, bathi, ba-u, ba-them, ba-then, ba-nu. And then the participle is the same. Then he gives you the participles under there. The participle here is the same as that in the third masculine singular perfect. So you add the typical participle endings, the ah, the eem, and the oath, onto the 3ms. So calm there. If you just had a calm with no context, it could either be a 3ms perfect verb or a masculine singular participle. But the context would usually tell you which it is. But just on its own, that form could be either. And then the feminine singular participle, comma, kamim, kamoth. So, their stress is normal, being on the ultimate, the final syllable. Here's where the accent makes a little bit of a difference. The feminine singular participle is distinguished from the third feminine singular perfect only by the position of the stress. Comma is she arose, but comma is the feminine singular participle arising. Now, in the Bible, each word has an accent. So, there's a few accents that are either always at the beginning of the word or at the end. They're called pretonic or not pretonic. I can't remember now what it is. But the great majority of accents are right over the accented syllable. So if you have one of those accents in the actual Bible, there would be no ambiguity. You would know whether it's arising or she arose. But he doesn't put accents in his sentences on each word, so there's a little bit more ambiguity. And so therefore he says, given a sentence such as ha'ish kam, that could either be without context, either the man arose, perfect, or the man is arising, participle. So the only criterion that an isolated sentence can give you is that the perfect verb more frequently precedes its subject, while the participle follows. So therefore, if it was kam ha'ish, then you would think, okay, that's the man arose. But this way, ha'ish kam is more probably the man is arising or something like that, instead of it being the man arose. Okay, any questions on 64 there? It's important in each lesson to learn as much as you can, because if you have holes earlier, they tend to make it harder later. Like all that syllable stuff, which was like, bleh. Well, it helps you here understanding what's going on. So, okay, paragraph 65. This is basically just think of this as another paradigm to learn. Now, these two words essentially have the same, well, they're not entirely the same. So ideally, you would actually memorize both of these as their own separate thing. Semi-ideally, you would learn at least one. If you don't learn either of them, you're going to not basically know something that's relatively common, because the word from with a suffix does come up a lot in the Bible. So min is from, and ka, remember, is like or as. Now these prepositions can take suffixes. And if you have it with a suffix, it means from me, from thee, from him, from her, and so on like that. And we've seen we've had preposition with suffixes already, right? Some other ones? Yeah, but this is a different enough one. The suffixes here are different enough on these two words that it's basically like a new paradigm. There's some similarities, but they're not close enough that it makes it worthwhile to just think about the similarity. You basically have to memorize it as separate. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll say the ones for min, from, with the suffixes, and then we'll say it together. Mimeni. By the way, notice in the way I'm saying it, when it has the dogish forte, I try to say it longer. Saying it longer both is good pronunciation and it helps you memorize it, because you'll remember it has a dogish forte if you say the sound longer. So, mimeni, mimecha, mimech, mimenu, mimena, mimenu, mikem, miken, mayhem, mayhen, or mayhena. So 2 feminine plurals. All right, let's say those together. Mimeni, mimecha, mimake, mimenu, mimena, mimenu, mikem, miken, mayhem, mayhen, or mayhena. Let's do it again. Mimeni, mimecha, mimech, mimenu, mimena, mimenu, mikem, miken, mayhem, mayhen, or mayhena. Let's do one more time. Yeah. Mimeni, mimecha, mimake, mimenu, mimena, mimenu, mikem, miken, mayhem, mayhen, or mayhena. 2 of those forms are identical. Which 2 are identical? Good. There's 2 mimenus. Mimenu could either be from him or from us. So, if you give a gift to somebody, or your wife gives a gift to somebody and you're in Israel and you just say mimenu, then it kind of covers you, because it could either be just, well, actually it'd have to be you, because it either be from him or from us. So you could give a gift and it could be from both of you, or just from the one. It's the same form. But normally you think of like the nu, like the verb nu is like the we, right? Kathav, kathava, kathavta, kathav, kathafti, kathavu. So that new sort of ending you think of as more of a from us ending. It's a little bit, you haven't seen that as really as a him up to this point. But that's what it is, so that's what it is. But you might think it's a little bit more normal on a from us than on a from him. All right, I'll say the ones with a kaf, all the endings on kaf, and they get this whole big thing on the end of it too. And then we'll say it together. Kamoni, kamoch, I'll start again. Kamoni, kamocha, kamoch, kamohu, kamoha, kamonu, kakem, kaken, kahem, kahen. Now the actual suffixes there are pretty similar to the mimeni, though the first part, like the vowels, are a bit different underneath the first part. But the actual endings, the e, the echa, the ache, the nu, the na, those are relatively similar. Though they're different enough, really, you probably should just memorize it as separate. Okay, let's say them together here. kamoni, kamoch, excuse me, I said it wrong, kamocha, kamoch, kamohu, kamoha, kamonu, kakem, kaken, kahem, kahen. Let's do one more time. Kamoni, kamoka, kamok, kamohu, kamoha, kamonu, kakem, kaken, kahem, kahen. And really you just have to learn them. Because from and like are common. So it's worth learning it. Okay, the forms kamoni can be used in this. He has a quasi-pronominal sense on the top of 14 there. Ein kamohu ba'aretz. Ein, there is not, kamohu, like him, in the land. So there is not like him in the land means there is no one like him in the land, is like the idea. So there is not like him in the land. And then we have kol. Kol is the word that corresponds to the English each, every, all, or the whole. It doesn't get inflected, so that's nice. It always just stays the way it is as kol. And it can be joined with a makef. That's that line after the word. Kol there. And then when it has the makef, it's kal. What's the vowel with the kal there with the makef underneath the kaf? Why am I saying it is an O sound? Isn't that a comets? Good, it's a comets hatuf. That's why it's an O. It's the closed syllable, kal, and so that's a comets hatuf. It's an O, not a comets A vowel. So when it doesn't have the makef, it's kol with the cholim. When it has the makef, it gets shortened to the comets hatuf as kal.
What's comets hatuf? Oh, okay.
Comets hatuf looks just the same as comets, but it's an O vowel that's shorter than the cholim. And you don't have quite as many of them as you have cometses. So you might be more familiar with comets, but they do. It's it's a vowel that is found in a lot of words.
Comets hatuf shows up when is the comets in a closed syllable?
Well, it wouldn't be. It's not a comets in a closed syllable. It's its own. It's a different vowel, but it's a shorter O vowel. Like here, kol. Here's kol. This is all, every, the whole. Now the makef joins it to. There's some other word here. Word X. The makef basically makes it so that this whole unit is considered as one word. So it's like this is an appropriatonic syllable, very likely now, or a longer syllable. So the kol gets shortened to kal when it has the makef.
The way I always identified it before was when there was a show after the consonant after that.
Sure. Yeah, if there's a silent shawah, that would be another indication. Now, this word here only has 2 letters.
Yeah, so it kind of different how I was identifying it before, because now it's different.
Yeah, yes. So there's no silent shawah, but really this is still a closed syllable. Just like if it was like this and there was more letters over here, this would still be a closed syllable. Yeah.
That would be a comets.
This would be a comets hatuf. If this was an open syllable, let's say there's a pathak there, then it's a comets. Yep. And when there's ambiguity, remember there's this little line that goes there, and the line is called metheg. Yeah, okay. The line is the metheg, yeah. Good.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
I know you said it before, but
Yeah, metheg, nutmeg. Oh, no, that's something different. Okay. Yeah. All right, so, kol. What does this word kol mean? Well, it means all, every, the whole. So here you have there, he gives you all the examples he gives you right here, has the makef, but it could, just like you could have kol yam every day, you could equally have kol yam without the makef in the Bible. It just depends on whatever. And it would mean the same thing. So here, kol yom, each day, every day. Kol hayom, all the day. Kol hayamim, all the days. Kol ir, each city, every city. Kol ha'ir, all the city, the whole city. Kol ha'arim, all the cities. Which ones is he translating the kol as all versus translating it as each or every?
Say that one more time.
Notice sometimes he's translating kol with each, and sometimes he's translating it with all.
The ones without an article.
Good. When the following word has an article, then it's all the day, all the days. When there's no article, it's each day, every day. So kol yom, each day, every day. Kol hayom, all the day, the whole day. So kol yom, you work on Hebrew, would be that each day you spend some time doing some Hebrew. Kol hayom, all the day, would mean you spent the entire day doing Hebrew, because you hadn't spent kol yom for the previous week doing it, and so you had to spend kol hayom. You had to spend the whole day doing it. So that's how that would work. All right. Then you can have the expression kol asher, and that's everything that or which. So the sentence here, Nathan lo eth kol asher kana. He gave, Nathan, lo, to him, eth, direct object marker, kol asher, everything that, kana, he acquired. So he gave him everything that he acquired. So kol asher is all that, everything that. And then kol can have this indefinite pronominal, since he says kol chadash, anything new, all new things, something like that. Basically, if you just remember kol is all, each, every, and the difference between when it's articular and non-articular with the word following, the rest of it, I think, you can pretty much figure out what's going on with it. Okay, any questions on here before we look at the vocabulary for just a second?
I still have struggle going from the English into the Hebrew with the direct article.
The direct object marker?
Yeah.
So you said the struggle going English to Hebrew, the direct object marker. English to Hebrew is harder, but you do have. The value is it makes you think through every single little mark you're putting down. So it is valuable, but I'm not going to say English to Hebrew is not harder. It is harder, and it would be whether it's direct object or not direct object would be whether it's you put the eth in when the thing is definite, when you don't have the eth when it's not. So. Okay, let's look at the vocabulary here. Kali, vessel, utensil. So you can use that word. You can call your fork and your spoon kali. You can ask your isha to give you a kali if you don't have a fork. You can do that in the erev, in the evening, when you were having dinner together, around your shulchan. Yeah. Seriously, if you use these words in real life, that's a great way to learn them.
Or in the boker.
Yeah, boker. The boker.
As you come.
Mm-hmm. Yes, as you come, baboker. You arise in the morning. He arose in the morning. Kam baboker. Psalm, put, set, place. Ba, come, enter. Notice these psalm, fast, gar, sojourn. All those ones there, those are those second wows. So if you really, look at psalm to fast, find that in the back. In the glossary. Psalm, to fast.
It also has another meaning. Where?
Means what?
There's another, that has another meaning.
Psalm?
Yeah, I thought that was already a vocab word.
Oh, that's different. Sham is a vocab. Sham is there. Psalm is the fast. Different letters. It's page 326 in the Hebrew English glossary.
Yeah, it is with the...
What do you notice about how he puts it in the back?
Yeah, is it with the wow?
Good. Notice there's a wow. It's sada wow mame. And then after that he says psalm, and he says yatsum. That's the imperfect you don't know yet. You see it there, second column, 326. So I would recommend that you learn the second wows or the second yods as if the consonant's there, because that's even how he puts it in the back. But if you don't want to, that's fine. I don't care too much, but I think it's probably a little better. Then you have ath, which is to, as far as, by, until, and kol, all, each, every. Okay, if you have any questions, we'll answer them now. Otherwise, we'll take a break, and then we'll get to do some homework here. Okay, let's take a break. Just since we gave you this to encourage you, just so we do something exciting, we'll translate something from the Bible first. Just so you get to do a sentence in the Bible here. So get out your little sheet here. I want to point out something on the number 3. Notice the number 3. I say 1 Kings 13:1. See paragraph 72, page 67. Obviously, you haven't got to that yet, but there they talk about something called the construct chain. When you have two nouns next to each other, it's like you have the word of, and you'll learn about that a little very soon. But in that sentence there, Wehene ish Elohim. Ish Elohim. What is the word ish? Man. What's Elohim? God. That's not just man, God. That's man of God. So that's all why I put that. See paragraph 72. That's man of God. So we won't do that number 3 right now, because it'll take a little longer. Let's go ahead. Why don't you, Philip, why don't you try to translate 1, and Brother Henning, why don't you do number 2? And when you think you have it, you can say it out. These portions from Isaiah.
Line under that cop is just an accent mark.
Yeah, underneath the ko, you can ignore that. And it's possible that you might have a word here that you haven't learned yet. And then you can look it up in the back in the glossary, or look it up in BDB. Do either of you have BDB with you?
Yeah. No.
Okay, there's one BDB. That should be fine. Most of the words there you know, but you could have one you don't know.
Some lines to distinguish between words or something?
Like after Ha'el and Yehovah, that line between them and the little thing underneath the ale, the little rectangle thing, that's both part of the accent.
Okay. And then what about on ko, right after ko?
Mm-hmm.
There's that line above on the top there?
Ooh, ko and amar. What is that line? Ko amar. We just had that on call. Call yom and call hayom.
Oh, is that a meg?
That's a makef.
Okay.
Yeah, you got yourself a makef there. It just means those two words together have one accent. They're treated as one word. And amar actually is the one word where I had to delete the accent because it didn't show up in Microsoft Word. It became a weird, this gigantic thing that was bigger than all the letters. I'm going to be right back while you're looking at those. Question?
That ko amar, the beginning, is that a separate word, ko?
Yeah, that's a separate word. I think that might be a word you don't know.
Yeah, so they have to be combined. You just put them together.
Well, it's treated like one, but they are two different words. Okay. But it's just for the purposes of accentuation to only have one accent. But ko is one word and amar is a second word. Amar, I'm pretty sure you have.
Yeah. And that will be in here, the ko?
It should be. Ko should be in there. I think ko is in there. It's a very common phrase, ko amar, followed by what follows it. Yeah, ko is, well, yeah, tell me what you think. If you have you can talk to me about it. When you think you know what it is, you can go ahead and tell me. Oh yeah, ko is there. It's page 322 in the vocab.
Okay, I got mine.
Ooh, you got it.
I had a hard time finding out
Heath has one. Yes, there are some words in there that are just somebody's name. Like, what's this word? Oh, it's a guy's name.
Okay, mine says, and Jehovah gave wisdom to Solomon.
Hey, great. Can you say it in Hebrew?
Yehovah, Nathan, Hokmah,
Lishlomo. Good. So he said it's Wechoah, Nathan, Chokmah, Lishlomo. Or Wadonai, if you said it that way. And he said the translation was, and Jehovah gave wisdom to Solomon. And that is correct. Very good. Okay, so he has, the Ko-Amar, he said, is thus he said. And Ha'el, that's a little bit tricky. I think that's one you actually don't.
Well, Ha would be an article.
Good, that's an article. And Heath, you can actually, if you want to help him with number 1 too, you can. Then we'll do some of the ones in homework.
Would just be
Ale is actually, that's a word you don't know yet. It's not just like one of the 2 ones. I'll just tell you what it is. It's actually the singular of Elohim. So most of the time God is called Elohim, but once in a while you have a singular El.
So it would be Ha'el would be God or the Lord.
Yeah, it would be, well, El is, yeah, this would be God. Be the word God. Ha'el is the God. Yeah, it would be. I mean, that's there. It is articular, so you would say the God. That'd be fine.
Is that the God, like capital G?
Yes. Well, based on the next word, it's probably not a false. El could be used for a false deity, but it would be the true God here.
What's above the next word there? Is that a little accent?
But yeah, there's an accent above the
Is
cholam.
that a holum there?
Yes, it's a cholam with a little squiggly thing above it. That's an accent. Mm-hmm.
Jehovah.
Yep. So thus saith the God Jehovah, or something like that.
Yehovah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay to pronounce it Jehovah.
Yeah. Well, Yehovah is Jehovah. Yehovah is the same thing as saying Jehovah. And the King James says, thus saith God the Lord. Ko-Amar Yehovah is thus saith the Lord that you see all over the Bible. I think you have that verb. You might not have that verb.
Is that work for avoda?
No, that's not the word work.
Like a different form?
Tell me, what would be the 3 root consonants in that word in Borea?
Are we looking at Borea?
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's a variation of bara,
Yes, good. It is a form of bara, which means?
to create.
To create. So this is a form of to create. And what would it be?
Probably created, considering context.
You might think so, but it's a little bit tricky because
So that's a verb.
that is a verb form, yes, the verb bara,
So
to
that
create.
would be a verb in like perfect.
Well, you tell me.
You're the teacher.
Yes, but you don't know it yet. That's a little bit tricky because sometimes, look on page 18, you have the participle forms. Yoshev, Yosheveth, Yoshevim, Yoshevoth. Sometimes, instead of just having a cholam for the participle, like on Yoshev, you might also have an actual cholam wow instead of just a cholam. So this would still be Yoshev with a cholam wow instead of a cholam would still be the masculine singular participle. That's kind of the hint for this here.
So it would be creating.
It would be, well, tell me the form. What would it be? Would it be like a perfect 3MS, 3FS? Would it be a participle? If it's a participle, what kind of participle?
It would be like matzah. Wouldn't it?
So like matzah.
Perfect. Third aleph.
It is a third aleph, yes. But does that vowel pattern, a cholam, wow, and a tsere, does that look like anything on matzah for the third alephs, the perfect verbs? On if you look on page 47, it doesn't look like anything. It looks very different than matzah, matzah, matzatha, matzath, matzathi, matzau, matzathem, matzathem, matzanu. So if it doesn't look like any of those, so it's not a perfect, so you don't have much left in terms of what you've learned up to this point. Yes, it's a participle. Does it sound like, what does it sound like? What is it? Does Bore sound like Yoshev, like Yosheveth, like Yoshevim, or like Yoshevoth for the vowels?
On 18.
Yeah. Good. It sounds like the masculine singular participle. So this is the masculine singular participle, but it has the cholam wow instead of the cholam. Well, it's creating as it's a masculine singular participle. Here it's actually like a substantival participle, so it's like creator, but that would just be the context. But here I think that the idea... Oh, and you know what? Also, what you haven't learned yet on page 67, well, what's Hashemayim? What's that word?
Heavens.
The heavens. Hashemayim is the heavens, which is somewhere in your vocabulary. Now, this is actually also like what you haven't learned yet on page 67, so I should put that under number 1 too, where you have those two in conjunction. It's like creator of the heavens. So it would be thus saith, or thus said, God, Jehovah, God the Lord, creator of the heavens.
Is that the whole verse or just part?
No, it's only part of the verse. It's not the whole verse. With not knowing the imperfect and not knowing so much, you basically aren't going to get whole verses yet. But hey, this is your only lesson 14. You can already do some things. So good. So you have 2 sentences there, and we're not going to do the third one right at this time. Yeah, thus said God, Jehovah, or God the Lord. Yeah, the God Jehovah, creator of the heavens. Let me see what the King James says. Thus saith God the Lord, he that created the heavens. That's what they say. And Bore is that masculine singular participle. Yeah, it's fine. Good, very good. Tov Ma'od. And I'll let you figure out number 3 on your own. So, all right, let's see. What homework should we do here? Let's try. Actually, I'd like you to try number 2 on lesson 12, English to Hebrew. So, Heath, why don't you do number 2? The prophet grew fond of the boy. Yeah, lesson 12, number 2. Yeah, let's exercise A number 2. And Philip, do number 4. This way. Try number 4. They went up toward the city with the people. And there's a reason he put dashes in there, toward the city. And if either of you finishes that, then try number 1. This is as much because of how he is a little bit less literal in his English to Hebrew than anything else. Oh, I should mention that in the homework, when he has Yehovah, Landon does not point it. He just writes the consonants without vowels. I would suggest that you fully point it the way that it is in the Bible. Oh, and I'm actually interrupt you for just a second here. Look in your answer key on page 48. I want to point this out before you get there. Look at the answer key, page 48. This will just help you with lesson 13. And you can see this also in the King James, like it's like he dreamed a dream, he worked a work, that type of thing. It says on the middle of page 48, Hebrew is fond of using together a verb and a noun from the same root. This gave rise formally to translations such as to dream a dream, to sin a great sin, etc. He says it is better to use something like to have a dream or to commit a great sin, but I don't think that is superior. I think that translating it literally is superior. So, if you have more literal answers in your answer key than he does, like you said, dreamed a dream, and the answer key says had a dream, you don't need to correct it to the less literal. You can leave it with a more literal. And that would be fine. And I also want to point out on the answer key, page 51, note 1, on page 51, it says literally because there was not to him. I think that's a typo. I would cross out the word not. The sentence is because there was to him, not because there was not to him. But somehow the word not got in there. It's page 51, footnote 1, in the middle of the page. He says literally because there was not to them, but it should just say literally because there was to them. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was... Yeah, that one printing of the King James where they changed. There was a typo in the printing press, and it was like the Ten Commandments. And they changed. I think they changed "Thou shalt not commit adultery," but they accidentally the printing press left out the word "not." In all 10? Oh, really? All 10 they left the word "not" out. Oh, wow. So "Thou shalt not kill" became "Thou shalt kill." Thou shalt commit adultery. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Thou shalt worship other gods besides me. Oh no, this is bad news. That one should be popular. They probably are going to bring that one back soon.
I think it's amazing that they got it. I mean, yeah, it was a mistake and they corrected it, but with the technology they had then, it's amazing there weren't a lot more of those kinds.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
People were more careful than
Yeah, they were pretty careful when they're printing stuff, yeah. I agree. Oh, by the way, with these homework ones, after you do it, if you want to check the homework ones, with the Bible ones, if you want to check it, once you're done, you can check it and you can write in red pen whatever is wrong. You can use an English Bible. You can use like a computer program where everything is parsed or whatever. You can use whatever you want to make sure you did it right after you do it, but just put correction in red pen. Free Bible programs tend not to have as developed stuff for Hebrew because getting the vowels in and stuff is hard. Like Online Bible doesn't even give you a pointed Hebrew text. So, but Accordance does.
The one I have on my phone isn't.
Your phone is no vowels?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of a problem.
And even it doesn't parse out. The Greek does, but
Yeah, it parses the Greek, but not the Hebrew. Yeah. So.
And actually, I noticed that not even every word is connected on the Strong's.
Oh, no.
In my Hebrew.
Really? That's weird. Every word does have a Strong's number. Yeah. Every Hebrew word does have a Strong's number. I don't know why it wouldn't in there.
I don't know. It's kind of random where they list a few words that aren't. Anyways, my phone's not too good for Hebrew.
No, I guess not. Free phone.
It's fun to look at, though.
You can't use it for this class, but Accordance is really, really good for both Greek and Hebrew for Bible study. It's a great tool. It's better than Logos for original language study, I think.
Yeah, I am on my phone. It works works kind of like Young's, where I could look up Greek words or Hebrew words or English words.
Do you have Logos on your phone?
No.
Oh.
It's
Like
Android Bible.
Android Bible? Oh, okay.
Is there a discount at all, do you know, for anyone here who, have you ever considered talking with the people of Accordance to see if they can get a discount?
Accordance, they don't give too many discounts. Like Logos, if you require students to own it for a class, then they cut you a bit of a deal. Accordance doesn't give you too much, except if you're the first time, like they have different discounts, like they have like a student discount, a professor, they have different discounts that you get if you're in certain categories of people. And if you buy a package, you get a discount versus buying modules individually. But I'm not aware of a discount. Certainly if it's just a voluntary thing, they're not going to give you a discount for class. Like maybe if everyone in a class had to have it, they might give a discount if, just so that, because they, we're forcing everybody to buy it, but I'm not going to force anybody to buy it for this class because you can't even use it in class, except for something like this. If you have any questions about your homework too, feel free to, you can ask each other, you can ask me right now about any of these ones if you're having trouble finding something or whatever. Some Hebrew software programs also don't put the accents in the Hebrew text, which is also inferior. So, but Accordance does. This is just from the Accordance Hebrew text.
Okay, I think I got one.
Oh, he thinks he has it? Were you 2 or 4?
I was 2.
You were 2, okay. So go ahead and tell me what you think you have in...
Just say it orally.
Say it orally in Hebrew. I should have had you guys write these on the board. That's what I should have done.
I can if you want me to.
Yeah, why don't you write it on the board, actually? That's good. Write number 2 on the board. Okay. What would be the literal translation of that there?
The prophet found grace in the eyes of the boy.
Good. The prophet found grace in the eyes of the boy. That's the way that he has in English. It's confusing. That would actually, if he wanted you to say that, that would actually be the boy grew fond of the prophet. But he has the prophet grew fond of the boy. Mm-hmm. So it would actually be the Na'ar that found grace be'enei hanavi.
Okay.
See, when he does it, it's confusing. It's not a literal way. That's one reason I had you do this one. So what you actually want is the boy found grace in the eyes of the prophet.
Okay.
So you can change it there, and then you can change it up there too. It sure has a lot more theological significance to say that we found grace in the eyes of God than to just say that God grew fond of us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a difference.
I mean, there's a cup that I like to drink out of at home sometimes, and I'm kind of fond of it, but it hasn't found grace in my sight.
Well, it could also imply a workspace concept.
Yeah, it could imply a workspace concept, yeah.
If I grew fond God's eyes, well, then I did something to get his fondness done.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would interpret the statement.
Yeah. Let's see. Hane'er matzah chen be'enei hanavi. Can you stop for Philip? What do you think of that, Philip? Do you like it?
I've not really looked at it yet.
I'll take a look. Oh, good. Just finish yours. So tell me whether you like his number 2. The boy found grace in the eyes of the prophet. Hane'er matzah chen be'enei.
Did you say do number 1 after that?
Yeah, you can start number 1. Is this a set goal, or is that just a little nothing?
That is probably it should be a save rate.
Yeah, okay.
It might have
Good.
been not erased.
Yeah, I think it was a non-erase. Yeah. You like it? Does it find grace in your eyes?
So he has the boy first.
Yeah.
Hana'ar.
Mm-hmm. Hane'er.
Why wouldn't you put the prophet first?
Because really, when he says the prophet grew fond of, the one who finds the grace is the one who you're growing fond of. So the boy found, the prophet grew fond of the boy is really the boy found grace in the eyes of the prophet.
Okay.
So he had it the other way before, but he flipped it because this is actually what he meant. Oh, the answer key has Yeleth, but Na'er is fine. But the answer key has Yeleth instead of Na'er. But
I do that often. Is
Yeah.
between air and yellow.
that's okay. Does the rest of it sound good to you? Yeah, I think it's good. Tovot. Normally, the verb comes first. So normally it'd be matzah hana'ar instead of the subject first. But this is correct, but this would probably be like emphasizing the subject more. If the typical Hebrew word order is verb subject, but that's still correct. That's okay. So good, tov ma'od. And you can put yours up, Phil, if you want to.
All right, I'm just copying this down real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Feel free to copy it down.
Hana. What's on the first line there? Is that a hen or?
Chen. That's a chayth. Question, what's that
there's
third
a
word?
vowel under there?
Yeah, it's hard to see because of the glare. There's a tzere. Chen. Yep, chen. Hane'er matzah chen be'enei hanavi.
that a new?
Yeah.
Yep, that's a noon.
So should the top and the bottom line be the same?
Yeah. The question was, is this shorter than that? Yeah, it should be equal.
And is that a bay then on that next word over?
That's a noon.
Okay, that's a new too, so that should be the same.
And
then that's a bay then. Ha.
a bay
Or
to swim in?
ha na.
A bath?
Bay.
This is a bath, yeah.
Okay.
Bath, ayin, yod, noon, yod. The yods are a little shut off.
It's a
Hey, noon, bath, yod, aleph. The noon is
See what I'm reading?
expanding.
I always see noon and email. They look so similar to me.
Noon and gimel do look a little bit similar in the
Yeah.
script, yeah.
And so I always got the impression that noon is a little bit further on the bottom.
No, noon is not further on the bottom, though. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more like the gimel's a little slanted.
When it's small script, I can't. That's why the answer key, I actually have a hard time reading the answer key because it's so bold, and I can't tell the difference for the noon and the gmail and the answers key.
Oh, can't tell the difference. Oh, yeah, it'll help to have a pen. Can't tell the difference in the answer to noon and gimel, eh?
I think he said that he's going to stop transliterating stuff. This is how I told the difference before.
You might have to get reading glasses.
I got reading.
Oh, man. There was actually somebody else also said, one of the distance people said that he has difficulty seeing some of the small little fitsy things. Oh, in the book he said it's hard for him to see. But that's why, actually, I guess that's an advantage. I have the bigger book.
Yeah, I noticed that Pastor has that big book too.
I do too.
Oh, you do too.
But I have trouble seeing some of them too.
Well, like the answer key is a big, but it's the print is still. I think he made it bold, which makes it hard for me to read some of them because it kind of like blends the ink more to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Pastor's book and I was like, "That's what he's like." He said to me, "He's like, oh, that's a nice one," and I'm like, "Yours is a nice one because it's big,
Yeah.
readable."
Yeah, the bigger one is more readable. It's more expensive too, but it's more readable. I didn't think about that when I mentioned the cheaper ones, but
I buy used, so I find a cheapest deal. I mean, I got my lexicon for $4.
wow, that's a good price.
Yeah, and I don't remember what I paid for textbooks. And,
You got number one yet?
oh, I'm working on that.
If you get number one and we have time, we'll try a little bit of lesson 14. Let's see. 12. It's number 4, right?
Yes. Supposed to be.
All right. So Heath, do you have any, what do you think about his number 4 here? They went up toward the city with the people.
I'm a little unsure about the first they went up. I mean,
Yeah,
I got
they went
the
up
word.
does have some problems.
ascending up is the word I used.
Yeah, Allah is the correct verb to go up, to ascend. Now, the subject, is it singular or plural of went up? The sentence is they went up toward the city.
So it should be plural.
Good. Plural subject. Okay, so we're looking for the third plural form. Allah, is Allah a sound trilateral root, or is it a third hay?
Trilateral. Oh, it would be a third hay then.
Third hay, yes. So that hay is going to disappear.
Wait, I gotta find this then. Because that would be under.
It's the lesson you just learned, lesson 12.
Okay. Third hay.
So it's going to look like Banu.
The hay disappears.
It sure does. I don't know where the Baith came from in there, too.
It was from the perfect of katab.
Oh, no, that's one of the root consonants. Kathav.
This?
Yeah, so that other verbs are not going to have a Baith in there.
Okay. So this is gone.
Yep, that's gone. So is the Baith. Get rid of that Baith.
So let me see here. So just have.
Those are the right consonants. Now what are the vowels?
I don't know.
Well, Banu, what are the vowels on Banu?
The vowels?
Yeah.
Pa, te.
No, you have a comets. Not the pathak, it's a comets. Underneath the Baith, you have the comets.
That's the comets. And then the sureg.
Yeah, comets and a shurek. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I have to switch this?
You sure do. There is no vowel there. Well, no, because the vowel for the lamed is the shurek. So this
stays?
No. Is there one on Banu?
No, but I guess I'm trying to figure out what the root of the this is the word, though, that I looked up. Olem.
Allah is the 3ms. Okay. So the third plural is alu. Just like it's Banu, it's alu. This is the first syllable, and this is the second syllable. This is the vowel for the lamed. This is the vowel for the ayin.
So you just get rid of all the vowels that were there originally?
Well, each form, you put the vowels for the verbs on there. So Allah, so it would be Allah. The next one would be Alatha, Alitha, Alith, Alithi.
So if it was I built, you would put the ah.
Yeah, write I built up there. Go ahead, write I built up there.
Well, not I built, but I.
Oh yeah, I went up. Write I went up. Go ahead, write that. Did you finish number 1?
Yes.
Okay, let me check your number 1 while he's writing that up there. And we are. What time is it? And after we write that up, that'll be the end.
Might be legible.
And you can tell him if he did that right when he's done with that up there. What do you think? Is that how you'd write they went up?
No, this is I went up.
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. I went up. Is that how you would write I went up?
Yeah, that looks right.
Yep, that's it. Alithi, good job.
So this is they went up.
Yep, that's they went up. Alu. So they went up, and then we have what's the rest of it here? They went up cityward, toward the city. Heath, what do you like? What do you think about the rest of his sentence there? I'll just take it as a time. They went up. It's almost all right. It's very good. So they went up. Ha'ira is correct. That's cityward, toward the city. And then Baha'am. What do you think about that?
What is supposed to be with the people?
Yeah.
I would have either.
Is this supposed to something with the vowel?
Yeah,
Yeah, when you join those, something's probably supposed to happen. I can't remember.
the Komets would be under the Beth, and the Hey would disappear.
Yes. You don't have the article with that preposition. So it would just be bomb. Like you can erase the hey.
And that would join.
Yeah, and then make this a comments.
Yeah. Okay.
Is bomb with the people?
You could, bomb would be fine. I mean, you could say im. The answer key says im ha'am. Im ha'am, but this would be fine. And then when it's, because this is the evidence the article is still there. When gets the article, am changes to a comments. So it'd actually be ba'am instead of.
Change.
Yeah, but that's just because of this particular word. And that looks like a sonic, but I'm sure that's a meme. All right, for time's sake, I'll just tell you what he wrote down for number 1. On that day, he made a treaty with the king. And you can copy it down. He said, Al Hayom Hahu Karath Barith Im Hamelech, which is pretty much on target. The answer key there had Bayom in the day, and you had Al, but that's okay. And Hahu, you had Hahu with a comets, and it's Hahu with a pathak. Karath Barith. Barith, you have a shawa underneath the resh instead of, I think it's probably a mistake. You had ba shawa yod. It should be Barith. And then Hamelech should have a doubling in the name, but besides that, it's right.
So it would be Hahu?
Hahu, yes, Hahu. It would be Hahu, not Hahu.
How come it's Hahu?
It says somewhere in here that it tells you that that's the form that it gets. It's not maybe what you would expect.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember where, but that is what you get with a hey. It tells you with the article rules way back wherever that is. Okay, it's time. Ooh, I'm going to read to you Deuteronomy 6. You guys have your Bibles with you?
Shalom.
Yesh. Okay, so let's see what page we're on here. Devarim.
It's 253.
Yeah, so we got to, since we didn't take the break, we're going to take the time anyway here.
353? 253.
We're doing Deuteronomy 6:4, right? No. I'm wishing you the benediction in Numbers. Numbers 6, right?
Yep.
I was looking at Deuteronomy 6, which is the, like, Hero Israel. Yeah, that is very good. But yeah, that's not a benediction, though. It's a great thing. Love the Lord.
So we're going to Deuteronomy.
No. You're in the right place. I was in the wrong place. I have to get over there.
250.
So yeah, go ahead, Heath. You read 24. Philip, you read 25. I'll read 26.
24. Vareka
Yish.
Yesh. Yesh. Mareka.
Oh, and because since you don't have the mic, I'm going to read it after you do. So what he said was, Yavarekecha Yehovah v'yishmereka.
Yaed.
It's a resh, not a daleth. Ya'er.
Yaer. Ye. Ye. Hu. Ah.
Yehovah.
Yahuah.
Yehovah.
You.
Panai.
What is it?
Pa. Nai. That's just a wow at the end, not a shurek, because notice there's no dot in the middle of it.
He. Panaya. Yao.
Panai. His face.
Ye. He. Neka.
Eleka.
Is there more to that?
Yeah, one more word.
At the end there? Why
Yeah.
does it separate like that?
No, you didn't read we hunaka yet. You just said eleka. You read Ya'er, Yehovah, Panai, Eleka, but then there's that one word after that.
Ya.
Do you have we hunaka?
I'm confused.
Can you help him? He's confused.
What word? Yeah. We. Oh, that's okay. We. And Neka.
We hunaka. Okay, I'll read the whole verse there. Ya'er, Yehovah, Panai, Eleka, we hunaka. And the final word here. Yisa Yehovah Panai Eleka V'yasem Lecha Shalom. And you are dismissed. All right.